In this episode, I meet with Assistant Superintendent Dr. Branco, reflect on trimester one as it comes to a close, and discuss next steps as we head into trimester two. We also take a look at sixth grade media studies students who, as part of a marketing campaign, interview the high school cast of Puffs. I'm Tim Daoust, and you're watching Inside TPS.
Welcome to Inside TPS. I'm here with Dr. Branco, the Assistant Superintendent of Schools. Dr. Branco, thanks for joining us today.
Anytime.
Well, it seems hard to believe we're already about to close out the first trimester of school. And could you share your thoughts on how things are going so far with the current learning models that we have in place?
Sure. I think first and foremost, we're really fortunate to actually still be coming up to the Thanksgiving break and still be being in school at this point in time. I think if you had asked any of us, parents, teachers, kids alike, in July and August, we wouldn't have probably bet a dollar that we'd be still sitting here right before Thanksgiving with schools open. So I do think from that standpoint, we're very fortunate to be here, and that we've been able to keep all of our protocols and practices in place to keep our staff and our students healthy and safe in the school. So I'm proud of our teachers, our students, our families, for all of their hard work and perseverance, quite honestly, as we've gone through that. There was a lot of professional development and training up front that you and all the other teachers were part of at the end of August into September, which was really, really helpful to get us together, not only from a safety and health and wellness standpoint, but instructionally, so we could figure out how best we could put together our models to move teaching and learning forward, quite honestly, in this new era of pandemic education. So I think the perseverance piece is important. We continue to learn, after all of these weeks and months, a little bit each day about how best to meet the needs of our kids, how best to take care of ourselves in real time as professionals, and really. I think I think the community needs to understand that it's been a community effort. Everybody in Tingsboro has really pulled the rope in the same direction and come together for the benefit of keeping the schools open and providing kids with great learning opportunities. We've learned a lot since we reopened in September, particularly around this concurrent classroom model, this concept of having a blend of remote students and in-person students. It is a unique model. It's not something you really train for. We built it, we got used to it, and every day we get a little better at it and understand it. One of the major takeaways we keep talking about is how to thoughtfully engage our in-person students and our remote students at the same time. And you could speak to this as well as anybody else. That's hard to do when you have kids at home and kids in front of you, and it's a balancing act as a teacher. To make sure that you're giving these kids your attention and what they need, as well as the kids on the other side of the screen. So I think those are the ongoing conversations with teachers about how we thoughtfully doing that. Some of the ways we do that is we design our instruction differently than you ever used to before. So you're creating lessons and units and activities and assessments, all cognizant of the fact that you've got one group of kids here and one group of kids here. So we constantly are talking about that instructionally. Teachers are working together collaboratively on grade level and in subject areas to make sure that they're kind of sharing best practices and, quite honestly, successes and places where we need to get better. You learn just as much when something breaks down, right, as we do when we move forward. And technology glitches aside, which are unfortunate, but were a reality. As we persevere through that, looking aside those unfortunate glitches, I think we've really kind of taken the ball and run with it as far as trying to adjust our practices. The other big thing for me and for all the teachers has been this concept of making sure we're aware of our social emotional health in the classroom. Some kids do well learning remotely and have reported that, you know, they're not as affected socially or emotionally by this. Other kids run into school on those 2 days that they can come in, and some are remote only for a lot of reasons. So I think that's another balancing act that the teachers are really trying to take on to make sure that kids feel good about school, feel good about those social interactions they're having with students. Again, as you all design your instruction, your activities, how do we get kids at home to work with kids in the classroom? How do we make sure there's just not this great divide, and that they really do feel like they're part of the classroom community? So those are a couple of the big things I think every day we get better at, and we share best practices within the faculty, and kind of learn from each other as we go. I think another big issue is, while we recognize that we have to use technology to make this model work, it's really important that we have some balance between on-screen and off-screen time, particularly for our little ones. But I would argue that that almost doesn't matter how old the child is. You know, that the student really has to be careful to not have the entire experience be through that screen or on that screen. A little easier when you have in-person students where you can manage that, but we continuously have conversations as teachers about synchronous and asynchronous time, old school lessons where they could still write and create and use manipulatives, and if you have to use technology to turn it in, do so. And even better, if the child's coming in on an in-person day 2 days later, sometimes you could even wait and turn it in that way. So
we don't want to get fatigued by the technology.
no, I mean, it's a blessing that we could do what we do.
Yes.
You know, you think 5-10 years ago, we wouldn't necessarily be in a place where we could do what we're doing.
Yes.
So I do celebrate it a little bit, but I'm a parent like many other people out there, and I do think we are worried about our kids hyper-focusing here all day. So we have these conversations in-house a lot about that balance. We need it. We need it to keep the model going, but I think we have to be really careful. And so those unplugged activities are really key things that we talk about. And can we have less screen time on the in-person days? So that we started the year having a lot of acclimation activities, so to speak, for the kids when they were in the building to get used to using the devices. And now that I walk around, it looks much different. You often see classrooms where all the devices are down and away, because we understand that that's precious in-person time. So those are a couple of the big things we've talked about. Very, very fortunate in Tingsboro to have content leaders, K-12, which are full-time teachers who help us steer the teaching and learning initiatives forward. Those content leaders have been working really hard with teachers to ensure that we have grade level and subject specific continuity as we move forward. Always important in schools, but now more than ever. So we've got different profiles of learners and different models split amongst different days, and all of a sudden how we're progressing through the curriculum and how much students are learning and retaining becomes a really, really, really important conversation, so that we don't leave someone behind, or we don't have groups of kids moving at different paces to the point where we can't get where we think we need to get to by the end of the year. Those are difficult conversations right now. We're a trimester in. This sort of gives us an opportunity to pause, I think, and kind of take a look at that. So we are using a variety of assessment tools throughout the year that will help us progress monitor students so that we can best support any students who we identify that are struggling in certain content areas. Some of those are homegrown tests and quizzes and assessments. Others are products that we've purchased or partnered with to help us diagnostically check in on students and give them benchmark assessments along the way.
Yeah, I know that I find those content meetings with my teams really helpful to see what works with other teachers and what can be improved as well. So to hear other teacher feedback about what's going on in their classroom helps me feel like I'm not alone, and I know that a lot of other teachers have expressed that same feeling. So it's really nice to be able to have that time where we can focus on the content and share ideas.
Yeah, that's great. And I think sometimes it's not about content to content. It's not just about math talking to math or science. Now, with the world we're currently living in, a lot of times it's about instructional practices, classroom management, student engagement, all of those non-subject or content-specific moves that you all have to make regularly. That's where you learn from each other. I hope that we can continue to make that happen and take some precious time throughout our school days to keep talking to each other about that work.
I almost feel like as a district we're ahead. You look at other districts who haven't even, they're all starting to think about going into these hybrid models, and I'm like, we've been doing this from the beginning of the year. Like, yeah, it's a different year, and you know, we can't perform the same way that we used to, but Tyngsboro itself, it really feels like we're leaps and bounds ahead of other districts, and not to say that other districts aren't struggling and trying to do the right thing, but I really feel fortunate that we were able to jump in this and get ahead of the game, as opposed to trying to jump into a hybrid model this late into the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hear the superintendent say this all the time. Dr. Flanagan will say context matters. And, you know, so we are a small town, a small school district. We really understand the context of not only the virus within our community, but who our students are, who our families are, and the capacity that we have in the rank and file for teachers. So I think when you put all that together, it was really a community effort to get all that work done in July and August, and a lot of it was proactive, you know, and not reactive. We all statewide, countrywide reacted in March, right? We didn't really know it was coming, so to speak, and all of a sudden March 15th hit, and wow, we adjusted on the fly. I almost feel like shame on us, you know, had we not been able to have been, you know, as thoughtful and as pre-planned as we were coming into September. But again, you know, every community has different needs and different, you know, barriers to success, so to speak. But I do think here in Tyngsboro, we were very fortunate to kind of pull together and really move everything forward.
So can you talk a bit about the next steps related to assessing and adjusting the learning models as we continue the school year?
Sure. Last week, we provided an update to the school committee and the community at large, and talked a lot about how we've been doing so far, what we've learned over the past couple of months from the models that we've had in place, and really what we think we need to do to make adjustments to the model for the sake of our kids moving forward. Talked a lot about some of the major drivers that we have in place right now. At the top of the list is that we intend to continue to prioritize the health and safety of all students and staff, obviously. We're going to continue to lean on the guidance of the professionals in the field. So we're going to follow the recommendations of the professionals and the experts, you know, that comes out of the CDC, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, Mass DPH. You know, those are governing bodies, so to speak, with high-end professionals in their fields that really help us understand contextually what we should and shouldn't be doing, and how to plan best in the state we're in. And lastly, we're going to continue to take a look at context and interpret the data locally to make the best decisions we can as we adjust our models and our practices. We really firmly believe that in-person instruction cannot be replicated by remote learning. There are plenty of online programs out there for every grade level, from, you know, pre-K all the way to the doctorate level, and lots of trainings outside of education. So we don't believe that it's inappropriate to learn that way, but, you know, when you talk about a replacement model, there just isn't a replacement model. And what you and I are doing, the back and forth conversation, the workshop model of learning by doing and applying everything you learn in subject areas is so precious that we want to make sure that we're recognizing that that's who we are in Tyngsboro and in the public school district, that we really believe in coming to school and participating that way. So with that said, any addition of in-person learning time in a safe, productive way is really important to us right now. You know, as evidenced by the students that have come to school committee over the past couple of months, the students want to come back. We hear from our students all the time about, you know, those 2 days are so important to us to come back in. And I would dare say that even our remote learners, while they're remote for a lot of legitimate reasons, I'm not sure that would be the model that the majority of them would just select, would be to stay home. I think there's a lot of drivers for that model to be in place, but generally speaking, our kids really want to be here and miss being in the schools every day. We are concerned about the time that our youngest students are online and away from us, that kindergarten to first grade group. While I think our teachers are doing yeoman's work, and our parents, you know, are killing it at home trying to keep the little ones engaged in the learning process, that partnership is as hard as any in the district right now. And that's a tough age bracket of kids, so we're really taking a good look at what we need to do for our K and 1 students and how best we can kind of slowly bring them back into the building and take care of them. And ultimately, we're also a little bit concerned about the level of progress that some students are making, so we're watching that. I talked a little bit about that earlier with the progress monitoring tools. And we have some struggling learners who just need more attention and need more face-to-face time, more hands-on learning opportunities than they're getting. So we're going to take a look at that population of students and make sure we continue to move forward meeting their needs as much as we can. So the school committee did ask us to do a few things at the meeting last week. They asked us to explore expanding in-person learning time for our students in grades 2 to 12, particularly on the Wednesdays. So right now, as you know, we have the Monday-Tuesday model, the Thursday-Friday model, and then we have that full remote on Wednesday. So we're going to explore using that Wednesday as another in-person day. So the hybrid group 1 week would come in on Wednesday, and the second hybrid group would come in the following Wednesday. So really over a 10-day span, it's a very modest increase of time for a child by name. You know, that 1 day every 10 days, but we'll take what we can get at this point and get them back in one more time. For our youngest learners, from our K and 1 students, we really want to work on getting them into the building every day. And so we're taking a good close look at the elementary school right now to talk about if we were to bring as many of the K and 1 students back 5 days a week as possible, what do our spaces look like? We need bigger classroom spaces, bigger teaching spaces. We want to keep our 6 feet, keep our masks, keep all of our mitigating strategies in place that have really kept the schools healthy to date. And so we want to make sure that by bringing more kids in, all of the protocols can still be maintained and all of our social distancing and mitigating strategies will work. So that's going to take some time for the elementary school to come up with those modified plans, but we really are pretty passionate about that K and 1 group and getting as many of them back as much as possible. We understand that there's transportation limits. We have to explore those. There has been no relief given right now on that, so until that relief is given, we need to continue to partner with families, understand that we can only provide transportation based on the configurations of the restrictions on the buses right now. Right. And those kind of are a driver that we can't control, we just have to react to and work within. And then again, as I said earlier, explore more in-person time for our high needs population of students. So some of the next steps we're taking, we've already sent out the family questionnaire, so that questionnaire is out there. And it went out this week, basically explaining the different models and the proposals and asking families that if in fact the proposal goes through, which of these choices would they select? And really, it's a non-binding questionnaire. Right. We're using it to gather data. We want to be able to factually say over the next month as we develop plans, this is the change. We currently have this many kids in a hybrid model or this many kids in a remote. If we move forward with a new model, we will now have this many kids. And so it's crucial data. So we're hoping that families get that information back to us in a timely manner. We've had some emails and phone calls already. People can continue to reach out to either the principal's or central office if they have concerns or questions about some of these proposals. But we feel like right now this is the chance to just slowly take some baby steps. The commissioner's office, the governor, they would like all districts to be pursuing opportunities to bring kids back in person more. And they continue to recognize that it has to be done when feasible. So all things being equal, the health and wellness of the community, your organizational structures, everything from staffing to the buildings, all of that stuff comes into play locally. And that's the work we'll do over the next month or so and really kind of take a deep dive into that stuff. Our administrative teams at the building level will begin to develop plans as the questionnaire data comes in to figure out how best we can do this. We'll come up with a timeline that makes sense from a planning standpoint for families to adjust to. And then our intent is to come back to the school committee meeting on December 1st and present all of our findings and some of our draft plans and proposals. And then really let the school committee make a decision on what direction to go from there. Takes a village, right? It's a lot of people, a lot of moving parts. A lot of work. Proud to be in Tingsboro. I think people are working hard. I think kids are benefiting from all of everybody's efforts.
Thank you, Dr. Branco. This is Tim Daoust for Inside TPS.
Hello, I'm Makayla LaVoie from Inside TPS Theater Spotlight. I'm joined by Diego Benites. So, Diego, tell us a little bit about your role and how you prepared for this specific performance.
So I have two roles. So I'm part of the cast and crew, and I'm part of the ensemble for the cast. So and then for crew, I do prop stuff. So I made the master prop list and I gave it to Miss Martin, and then she, uh, from there, she ordered everything and made sure that everyone had their props.
Diego, can you tell us what the audience can look forward to with Puffs and how this play differs from previous productions you have been in?
The biggest difference between this performance and ones that I've done in the past is that this one will be virtual, so it'll look very different than the many performances that I've done in the past. But overall, it should be a great experience.
I would like to thank Diego Benites for joining us today. Diego, any final thoughts?
Uh, Come out and see Puffs this Friday at 7 p.m. Go to tingsboroughtheater.booktix.com and get your tickets today.
Break a leg.
Hello, I'm Isaias Rivas for Inside TPS Theater Spotlight. I'm joined by Evan Dowling. So, Evan, tell us a little bit about your role and how you prepared for this specific performance.
Sure. So I play Wayne Hopkins. He is a Hufflepuff boy in the same time frame that Harry Potter is also at Hogwarts. Um, he basically, his whole thing is he just wants to be the hero, and everything he does, he just tries and tries and tries. But every time there's something that just stops him from just reaching that goal and being recognized as what he wants to be. So it kind of stinks for him, but it's really fun to play. For the role, it's something I had to prepare for, like mentally checking in, like because we're playing ages 11 to 18 in the show. Like every year we have to age up and kind of be more mature. But so now that I'm like 17, having to go back to play 11 is something I had to like think about, being like, okay, how does an 11-year-old act? How like do they think? What's all the energy? Like where do I get it from? So it was really just kind of going back into time, kind of, and just remembering how to act like an 11-year-old. So that's
Yeah,
probably how I prepared for it.
it's pretty tough.
Yeah.
Evan, can you tell us what the audience can look forward to with Puffs and how this play differs from previous productions you have been in?
Yeah. So Puffs is so funny. So I think that's something the audience can look forward to. There's a ton of jokes, a ton of laughs. Every character has like something that just makes everyone laugh. A lot of people play multiple characters. So sometimes there's scenes where you'll watch people like they'll turn their camera on, be one character, they'll turn it off, and they're just right back on as a different person. So it's really funny to see how people change and like see how like one second they're this person and the next time you see them they're someone completely different. It's so funny. And then like for previous productions, this show is just so much fun. Being that we're kind of at home and doing our own thing, we have to do our own lights and our own background and make sure we're on top of our costume changes. And being online, we have to turn our cameras on and off and like mute ourselves and not mute ourselves. So it's different because it's so like a one-man team kind of thing. Like I have this whole setup when I'm doing the show, like all my props are in one place and my lighting thing is right in front of me with my computer. It's really fun, but it's like it's different because it's it's still a team effort, just like all the theater shows we've ever been in, but it's more like a team effort, but then also within yourself you have to have like all like be on top of all your own things.
I would like to thank Evan Dowling for joining us today. Evan, any final thoughts?
Come see Puffs. It's this Friday, November 20th at 7 p.m. And you can book your tickets on the Tingsboro Theater website or on fotttheater.org.
Well, Evan, I wish you good luck in your play. Break a leg.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Macy Serrano from Inside TPS Theater. I am joined by Olivia Lambert. So, Olivia, tell us about your role and how you prepared for the performance.
So in the show, I play multiple different roles, and one of the roles I play is Helga, and she is the founder of the Puffs, and she's a very nice person, and she just wants everyone to feel special. And to prepare for the show, I've been practicing a lot with Zoom to try to figure out the easiest and fastest way to change between backgrounds and the character names. And I've also watched the Harry Potter movies several times because some of the roles I get to play are actually from the movies.
That's very interesting. Um, Olivia, can you tell us what the audience can look forward to in Puffs and how this play is different from previous productions you've been in?
So I think the audience is going to really enjoy the show because it provides a new point of view to the Harry Potter series. And I know for me at least that now when I watch the films, I can't but help to think about all these other events that were happening at the same time and that we don't get to see until after watching Puffs. And this show is very different from our past productions, obviously because it's over Zoom and online, but also as I mentioned before, I get to play different characters, and so do many of my other castmates. And in past shows we've only played one character at a time, and this makes the show very fun because we get to play around with different voices and character choices, and we get to tell the story of several people as opposed to just one.
I'd like to thank Olivia Lambert for joining us today. Olivia, any final thoughts?
Thank you for having me.
Break a leg.
So I'm Meghan McIsaac. I play the narrator in Puffs. Puffs is about the Hufflepuff's point of view during Harry Potter's 7 years at Hogwarts. It's a comedy. There's a lot of jokes. It's really fun, really fun. Come out and see Puffs.
Hello, I'm Cece for Inside TPS Theater Spotlight. I'm joined by Makayla. So Makayla, tell us a little bit about your role and how you prepared for a specific performance.
Okay, I play Megan Jones in the play Puffs. How I prepared? Well, obviously we have rehearsals every day after school. Well, mostly every day. And I took a lot of time to go over certain scenes with my friends and learn my lines whenever I had time so that I would really be ready. And I would take notes, obviously taking notes from the director. And yeah, going over scenes with people in school really helped me.
So tell us, Makayla, tell us a little bit about your part that you play and how the audience can look forward to Puffs.
Megan, the character I play, is kind of a little bit of a gothic character. She doesn't really like the house she gets assigned to, and obviously it's Hufflepuff because the show is called Puffs. She gets assigned to this house and she doesn't really agree with it, but you know, so you get to see her story of her making friends and her dealing with the 7 years of going to the magic school. And everyone can look forward to coming to see Puffs because it's a really funny show, even for people who really haven't seen the Harry Potter franchise, even though it's kind of like a funny spin-off of Harry Potter from the Hufflepuff's point of view. And the Hufflepuffs are kind of like the pushed aside house. So it's like an underdog story mixed with like comedy. So it's pretty cool.
Do you have any favorite other roles?
One of my friends plays a character named Leanne, and she's just this really funny Hufflepuff character who is just really, really, really funny. And I also really like the main character. He has a lot of character development and little moments to himself that are a good amount of comedy.
Okay, thank you, Makayla. I hope you enjoyed, and that was some little information about Puffs.